Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I got to encourage you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Really helps us out, and we appreciate it. But we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, Aquaman Andromeda, issue number 2. And so yes, for those that follow Rockin' Robbie Live, that means I didn't read a better book since I read the DC books for the DC sneak peek. Aquaman Andromeda, issue number 2 is the pick of the week. This is a fantastic series written by Robbie with artwork by Christian Ward and the lettering by Aditya Bidikar. I think that this is a phenomenal book. It's one of the best Aquaman books I've read in a long time. It's not necessarily Aquaman-centric, but Aquaman is instead like this mythical force of nature in this book, and it's really cool. It's a little bit like Michael Crichton's Sphere, but with Aquaman in the DC universe, but it's a black label book, so it's got this beautiful Prestige Plus format that Christian Ward uses to its fullest with amazing artwork, great color choices, and a very atmospheric book in its tone and its mood. I loved it. I thought it was great. Now, if you're not familiar with Sphere or this book, what it is an alien ship has landed beneath the ocean, right? And there are different factions of people, including like some scientists put together by the government are there, but then there's something else going on there, and then you got Black Manta and his people, and then you've got Aquaman, and this craft is causing things to appear from the subconscious minds of the scientists that are there investigating it. In this issue, they go into the ship, and it starts veering away from the Sphere comparisons there and starts getting more cemented into Aquaman mythology and lore. I love this book. I think it actually does a great job of building characters that we're at first not really super connected with, because this doesn't tell a story from Aquaman's perspective. It tells the story from the perspective of the scientists exploring this phenomenon. And what I like about that is when Aquaman shows up, it's big, it's impactful, it's rather large deal. Same thing with Black Manta. You get a little bit more into Black Manta, but he is more of a force of nature as well. Absolutely love this book. Thought it really continued and even kicked up the momentum from that first issue, moving the story along, progressing things nicely and neatly. Aquaman Andromeda, issue number 2. The pick of the week. We also have Sword of Azrael, issue number 1. This is the first part of a 6-part miniseries from DC Comics. It is written by Dan Watters with artwork by, I believe it's Nicole Samazija. I messed up that name. Nicola, we'll just say Nicola C. Anyway, I liked this book. I liked it a lot. I really do like the character of Jean-Paul Valley, of Azrael. I was like 12, 13 years old when Nightfall was going on, Sword of Azrael, all that stuff, so I was like target audience for that, and I ate it up. But Dan Watters is one of my favorite writers currently working in comics. I really love his use of language. I love his use of structure, his use of subtext and meaning. His books feel like literature sometimes. Even you get the most from Dan Watters, even when he's doing Azrael, which some people of his talent could easily phone in, but he doesn't. I really like what's being done here with this character. Now, some of this had already been built up in the Urban Legends, Batman Urban Legends book with a series of short stories. They are collected this week in Sword of Azrael, Dark Night of the Soul. So that's going to be a little confusing. This probably should have come out last month or a couple weeks ago or something, but there are 2 Sword of Azrael books. One is a compilation of the stuff that Dan Watters and Nicola did in Batman Urban Legends, which leads up into some of the things that happen here. Playing with the legacy of Azrael and doing it well, respectful of what's come before, and doing something truly unique and visionary with it. That's what this company is. That's what this creative team is doing. I really was impressed with this book. It did help to reread this, and if you are a stickler for everything in the right order, it goes this book, Arkham City, Order of the New World, then here. and it's cool. Azrael's in Europe trying to be a monk, trying to get away from the dark avenging angel voice that's always inside of him because of his programming from the Order of St. Damas. But what if there were others? Dun dun dun. Really liked that book, thought it was cool. Artwork was good too. At first I wasn't quite into it, but on my second read, I started feeling a little bit more of the energy and the tone provided by the artwork and liked it. Then we got the new champion of Shazam, issue number 1. It is written by Josie Campbell. Not super familiar with her writing, but Evan Doc Shaner on the artwork. A good, solid, crisp, bold, classic type of style of artwork, perfectly suited for this. So Billy Batson is, I don't know, somehow stranded in the Rock of Eternity. I stopped reading Teen Titans Academy, but Billy Batson's off the table for now. So we have to have a new Shazam. We have to have the full power go to somebody new, and it's going to Mary. So Mary Marvel takes over as the Shazam. We've seen this before, but I like the way that it's told in here. It's very slice of life at first. Mary is without the power. Her family's without the power. She goes off. She is a freshman in college. She's trying to start a new life, a new world. It's rather charming how that's brought into the story. And then, of course, she gets chosen to be the next bearer of the power of Shazam, and that kind of complicates matters. So it could have easily gone into tropey territory, but it kind of maintained its own identity and voice throughout, and I found it to be rather charming and fun. Then we got Batman White Knight presents Red Hood issue number 1. So Batman Beyond the White Knight, I believe, is on a brief hiatus, but until then we're getting this miniseries. It's going to focus on the origin of the White Knight version of Red Hood, Jason Todd, who we've already been revealed in the pages of Beyond the White Knight that he, in this world, was actually the first Robin. He was Robin before Dick Grayson. It gets into his character, how he becomes Robin, why he was no longer Robin, his relationship with Dick Grayson, how that works out, because, I mean, to be honest, they don't like each other. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty solid of doing something different with the character of Jason Todd, taking a different approach, adding some layers to a character that's definitely going to factor into the second half of Beyond the White Knight. The artwork by Simone DeMeo is okay. It's decent. It doesn't quite fit, for me, the world of White Knight. So it was cool, and it was nice, and the coloring with Dave Stewart doing the coloring, DeMeo doing some of the work there themselves in the beginning, but it just, the art felt a little too polished for this world. I wanted something a little bit more gritty. Even Matteo Scalera, I thought his work fit in better on the Harley Quinn book. But artwork's okay. It's decent, it's solid, just doesn't quite mesh with the rest of the story for me. I would have liked this to be a little bit grittier, but it's still a decent book. Then we got Batman 126, the second issue from Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez, continuing to deliver outstandingly dynamic and energetic composition and storytelling throughout the page. Each page has got a weighty anchor that just pops with energy. Each page has got a frantic flow into the story. It's like at a breakneck pace. The action gets ramped up here. I'm really liking it so far. I thought that the first issue was pretty solid, and in this one we get a little bit more into Failsafe, and it goes right into the action. You get some nice bits with Nightwing and a few other members of the Bat family, but some cool type stuff as far as comic book Batman action goes. That's what this book is chock full of. And then it's got a little bit of a surprise return to a concept from a familiar run, or a favorite run of mine on Batman, and I really liked the ending in this. And the backup story with Catwoman's pretty cool too, building up this whole what happens in the aftermath of the death of the Penguin. Then we got Black Adam Justice Society Files Cyclone issue number 1. Just like the Hawkman one from last month, this is a one-shot self-contained story to introduce you to this cinematic version of this DC character for the upcoming Black Adam movie. It is not 100% necessary to enjoy the movie, I am sure. And the last one, the Hawkman one, wasn't very good, but the Cyclone one was pretty decent. Maybe this is one you might want to check out because more people are unfamiliar with this character from the Justice Society. So this is a different version of this character, but I liked it. It's just kind of a neat, tight origin story. Doesn't try to do too much, doesn't try to go beyond. At the same time, it's not changing lives, it's not winning Eisners and Ringos or anything like that, but it's decently solid, and the backup story is okay. Then we got Flashpoint Beyond, issue number 4. Loved this issue of Flashpoint. This really amps up the scale of the threat in this Flashpoint book. How is it connect to Dark Crisis? How is it connected to the DC Omniverse? What's the difference between the Omniverse and Hyper Time? How is that all working? That is all directly referenced in this issue. There's a lot of revelations in this issue, but they don't make it like a big deal because most of this issue is still focused sorely in on Thomas Wayne, the mystery of this clockwork murdering stuff, an autopsy on Reverse Flash, and a really cool twist and surprise at the end. I've been having a lot of fun with this book. It is densely structured, it is information heavy, but at the same time, it stays grounded in character, and it has a great pace, goes all the way through. It never feels stalled out or stagnant. Then we got Dark Crisis issue number 3. Loved this issue. And the last issue of Dark Crisis, we had this big battle between Deathstroke and his secret society of supervillains. I guess they're not so secret anymore, but they just take out Titan's Tower. They like shoot Beast Boy in the face or something like that. Don't worry, he's surely going to be okay, right? Maybe. But in here, you get the aftermath of that, right? The Titans are kind of defeated. Dick Grayson doesn't know what to do. This Justice League is trying to get gobbled to or put together very quickly by Jonathan Kent and Black Adam. It just ain't working. Black Adam's trying to train them, but they just can't get it going, right? Now, speaking of can't get it going, this book doesn't quite feel like we're in full Crisis territory yet because it still feels like we're just building up to it. Feels like we're still building up to the big moment, but I am here for it. Some great pariah bits here. Green Lantern, how Jordan goes out with other Green Lanterns, starts investigating more directly the mystery of the death of the Justice League. I really like this, but it does feel like, once again, still set up for what's to come, but I'm loving the build-up, and I'm really excited to see how this is going to develop. Then we got Poison Ivy issue number 3. This was an alright issue, a little bit of a self-contained story, but still in the overall focus of this story, which is Poison Ivy is dying. She is out there on her own. She's left Harley. She's writing Harley Quinn this journal, telling her why she's doing what she's doing. She's out on the road, spreading these deadly spores to people, killing as many people as she can. So this book's weird because it's trying to have Poison Ivy be incredibly villainous and evil, and at the same time, kind of anti-hero-ish and likable and relatable. And it's kind of hard for them to balance that. So I don't know if it's quite working, but I'm still enjoying it. It's not boring. It's not dull. 3 issues in, I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I'm not completely sold on it, but I've been enjoying reading it. And then for Marvel, we have Edge of Spider-Verse issue number 1. There is another Spider-Verse event coming. Dan Slaughter. Now that would be a cool name. Anyway, so Edge of Spider-Verse is just like the previous Edge of Spider-Verses, introducing and reintroducing different iterations of Spider-Man across the multiverse, right? So this isn't the start of the big event that is going to be built up in Amazing Spider-Man here, as well as the new Spider-Man book by Dan Slaughter. But Edge of Spider-Verse number 1, it's got a Spider-Man noir story. It's okay. It's got this, I don't know, I'm pretty sure this is a new Spidey character. It's Spider-Rex. It's a big T-Rex, and it's Peter Parker, but he's a big T-Rex. It's weird. It's not quite as good as Jurassic League, I'll tell you that. The big part of this was an Arana story that kind of does something for that character. So if you're into that character, there's a big shift in her powers, focus, and energy and things like that. And then there's this character, Spider-Laird. I don't know, Dan Slott wrote that one, so you know that that's going to build and blossom into something. But each one of them, you know, just like the previous Edge of Spider-Verse, like, they show up at the end and like, yo, we need your help, man. They're back, crazy stuff. So, I don't know, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Speaking of all right, we got new Fantastic Four issue number 3, and it's all right. I actually like this issue better than I liked issue number 1 and 2. Now, I am a fan of Peter David. I am a fan of this run of new Fantastic Four from back in the day by Simonson and Adams, when you had Hulk, Wolvie, Ghost Rider, and Spidey taking over for the Fantastic Four briefly. That was a cool little 3-issue story. They came back in 374 with the Secret Defenders idea, right? They fought each other. That was one of my favorite issues. We've covered it on Marvel in the 90s. Anyway, new Fantastic Four number 3, it starts kind of getting a little bit more fun. All the setups kind of out of the way. We got the team back together, albeit it's kind of like funky how it's all like thrown together, and it's really absurd and weird. But in this one, it's able to just kind of go with the flow and have fun with it, and I appreciated it. It's nice to kind of throw back to the old school. I would have appreciated more of an old school approach to the artwork, though. One thing about doing these stories is I think you really need to have a more old school approach on the artist, and I don't like, more like Silver Surfer Rebirth worked so well for me because you had Ron Lim doing it. Now, even that I wish felt a little bit more old school in the artwork, but you know, what can you do? What can you do? Then we got Moon Knight here with issue number 14. This is an alright issue of Moon Knight. To be honest, this has been losing some momentum for me over the last few issues. This was a favorite of mine at Marvel in those first few issues, and it continued to drive through, but then it kind of just, it's not that it's losing direction, it's just losing momentum. There's something that's just, I don't know. The magic's not quite there. They're not firing off on as many cylinders as they were doing. Most of this issue, this entire issue, is a conversation in the head of Moon Knight. It's Mark Spector, Jake Lockley, and what's the other one? Stephen Grant. I can't tell the difference between my dreams and me waking life. Put up your dukes, mate, I'm Moon Knight. No, it doesn't quite get into that kind of stuff, but it's just a conversation between the three of them. It has some interesting concepts and stuff. While that's going on, Moon Knight's in this big battle. It's weird. It's alright. It's alright. It's just losing a little bit of steam for me. Let's jump over to Image. And from Image, we have Golden Rage, issue number 1. This is a brand new debut of a series from Image Comics, and it's kind of like Battle Royale meets the Golden Girls. Now, that's a really cool concept. This whole world in this book, what it is that women, once they hit an age where they can no longer bear children, they just get sent to this island, right? They get sent to this island and then just ignored. So they're forming these gangs. They've gone super hardcore. They're like deadly. So it's like Battle Royale, but with the Golden Girls. So that's interesting. The execution wasn't quite there for me. It was still a decent read. It was still cool. The artwork was decent enough, but it didn't ever really do much outside of just the interesting nature of that concept to really lull me in and make me want to come back for an issue number 2. So it was decent. It's a really cool concept, but the execution was just not as exciting as the concept. So we'll see what happens in issue number 2. Then we got The Dead Lucky issue number 1. I believe this is connected to the Radiant Black universe. I could be wrong on that. I think I saw that mentioned in the back. It's definitely got that aesthetic. Seems like they're building up this superhero universe with Radiant Black, Radiant Red, Rogue Sun, Dead Lucky, and it's all right. You know, I'm not reading the Radiant Black stuff, but that didn't change what my level of enjoyment would be. This is a new character. She like pilots this mech suit. It's interesting. It develops this character, and then it kind of shifts it around your expectation, and then it goes into full board into what it's trying to do, but it just doesn't quite feel like the structure meshes enough. It feels a bit disconnected and a disjointed experience, so it didn't really quite keep me in. The artwork was rather loose, and it was okay, but it didn't grab me in a whole lot. Then we got The Closet, issue number 3. Big disappointment for me. I've been really high on this book. I thought episode season, geez. Issue 1 and 2, I both made the pick of the week. Both made the pick of the week. So I was really excited for this finale. It's about a kid who's haunted by a monster in his closet, but his father and his mother are having this like very bad time in their relationship. They're moving cross country. He thinks that taking the kid driving across country with them is going to help. I did not like this issue. I felt like the ending just kind of fizzled out, right? It didn't really do anything here with the ending. It's a character exploration. That's cool. But man, when you introduce an interesting concept, you got to pay something off. Not even the human story is paid off in this damn book to me. It's just another conversation, another slow realizing that this dude is not a good dad, and maybe he realized, I don't know, I did not like the ending of this book. For a book to me that's felt very nuanced and impactful and interesting, to fizzle out the ending like this and not resolve anything, and not that I want a perfect resolution. I love Coen Brothers movies. Some of those movies just end. You know what I'm saying? They just end, and you're like, what? There's a tornado, the movie's over? Serious Man? Like, I'm not saying Serious Man. Like, that's the name of the movie, A Serious Man. Ends, tornado just ends. But it's a brilliant film. Anyway, aside from that, thought it was a bit of a cop-out. Like, and honestly, nothing was talked about or discussed in this issue. Yet another conversation, and I liked it, but nothing was nothing new was brought in, really. I don't know. This was weak. This was a weak ending. I was very disappointed. And now I'm starting to feel like James Tynion's just writing dialogue. Like, I don't know. Are you just writing dialogue and giving it to an artist and then they figure it out? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I didn't like it. I was very disappointed. It sucks. Anyway, I'm going to say it sucks. It sucks to be so disappointed is what I'm saying. Anyway, Little Monsters. By the way, art's great. Art's great. Little Monsters, issue number 6. Loved this issue. Thought it was really solid. We were really building up the story. It's about a group of kid vampires. They've been alone for years on their own. The people who turned them, or whoever was in charge of them, told them, you can't feed on humans. Humans aren't even around anymore. Don't go anywhere. Stay in this like area. So they're starting to explore. They're starting to find out that there are humans, right? Some of them have started getting a taste for human blood, and it's ramping up their hunger, right? Meanwhile, some of the group have found a human and have actually befriended the human. So now we're having conflict in this group, and it's building up, and then we have an outside force being introduced. The artwork by Dustin Nguyen is absolutely amazing. I love the use of the gray tones in here. It's like a duo shade screen tone-ish type thing that he's doing. It looks more like duo shade or something because it looks like he's painting with it, but obviously it's digital. But it really, really works. Very strong and solid black and white book. And another vampire book, which we're just filled to the brim with vampire books lately. We got Twig, issue number 4. Yes, this was the most enjoyable issue of Twig for me on a story level, like for sure. Every issue of Twig has had absolute brilliant artwork from Kyle Strom and Jean-Francois Beaulieu, who does the coloring. But the story's been pretty decent. It's been charming, it's been cute, but it's not done anything exceptional with the story. But in this one, man, it kind of gets to me a little bit. The charm, the cute, in conjunction with the artwork, some of the characters, some of the choices that are made in this one. Bam! What a really solid book. Twig number 4 was awesome. That's really cool. I'm excited to see that book develop. Now, I was into it. I was like, art's great, it's cute, it's charming, but they sunk their story teeth into me with that. Then we got Metal Society, issue number 4. This is a story about a society, a world that's been taken over by robots. In fact, humanity has died out hundreds and hundreds of years later. Robots decide, you know what, we're good robots. Let's bring humans back. So they start cloning people and bring them back. But they're just kind of like this slave class, this labor class, right? And humanity is trying to stand up and fight for their rights. So they've got one robot representative and one human representative to fight. That's what this whole book's been about. But even though we're introduced to the fight in the first issue, we still haven't gotten there. But that delay doesn't bother me at all, because what we're doing is we're flashing back and we're learning more about these characters, the robot and the human. And Zach Kaplan, the writer, is laying it out with like no judgment from the story itself. I really appreciate that. And through that, we're learning about the society and this world. We're not getting just big exposition dumps. It's actually happening organically as we're learning more about these characters that we already know are going to fight, and we're getting more and more invested in them. This book is, to me, crafted very well on a script level. The art's pretty solid, and it's very exciting when it needs to. And I believe there's one more issue, maybe 2, but we're about to hit that big fight, and I'm rather excited to see what actually happens. Then we got Stillwater issue number 14, a very intriguing issue of the Chip Zdarsky series. We are nearing the conclusion, so things are really ramping up. The town of Stillwater, which is the town which people can't die in the borders, but they also don't age. And the kids, who are like actually like 40, 50 something years old, they have revolted, they have taken over, and now they have learned that they can expand the magical boundary of their town, and they're trying to take over another town. Some really interesting concepts here, some cool movement in the story. Nothing super significant to blow you away, but some really great moments. Stillwater's been a good book, but through the hiatuses, sometimes I kind of forget who characters are. So like, I think there's supposed to be this big return at the end, and I was just like, who the hell are they? Anyway, I'm sure we'll find out in the next issue. Then we got Spawn 332. This was a really fun issue of Spawn. Spawn hasn't been my favorite Spawn book lately. I've been enjoying Scorched and King Spawn and Gunslinger immensely more. But the last issue of Spawn, was it the last issue? Yeah, the last issue of Spawn's the one where we learn the full real backstory of Cagliostro, who is the big bad in Spawn's world right now. He's become this entity called Sin, but Al doesn't know that yet. This is the issue where he finds out. So he's like going to Cog for help, and Cog's like, yeah, man, let me help you out. And then the shit happens, and it happens, and I loved it. I thought it was great. This was the best issue of Spawn I've read these last two in a while, to be honest with you. Really, really solid. Then we have Ant, issue number 4. This is from Eric Larson. Ant is a character originally created by someone else. Eric Larson now owns that character and is doing his own thing with it, integrating it more fully into the world of Savage Dragon, and even a little bit of Spawn action, which we got in the last issue. Eric Larson's artwork right now is really thinly inked and not super detail oriented, but it's still solid as far as storytelling goes. I actually have fun with it. It's kind of like a nice throwback almost to a point. It's got some dynamic energy. Doesn't quite feel like those early issues of Savage Dragon, but it's interesting. I mean, obviously Larson's work I don't think is where it used to be, but I'm still enjoying this book, but I am really kind of confused 4 issues in on what the hell's actually going on. Maybe I need to reread it. But I do somehow love, there's something about that quirkiness of the artwork that I really, really like. Sweet Paprika, issue number 11, the penultimate issue, and I cannot be more thankful. As far as the story goes, I'm really liking Sweet Paprika. I love the story. It has kind of overstayed its welcome, though. It, in the last few issues, has really just kind of been very repetitive, right? And getting to this point, which is in the story, the way the story unfolds, this was a really great moment for the story to set up the final issue. But this has been obvious, it has been forecast, and we have been spinning wheels for so many issues now that I'm just like, let's just wrap this shit up. From Dark Horse, we got Survival Street, issue number 1. This was an interesting concept. It just didn't quite mesh 100% for me. But what it is it's a world in which corporations are now regarded as private citizens, and so they can now run for public office. They have now taken all of the seats of the Senate and Congress, and they have created a world where everything is privatized. Like there's a moment where a character goes to Florida, and they're like, we need to see your pass. Gets a pass, is like, sorry, another company bought the access to these roads, so this is no longer valid. Now you're going to have to pay all these fees to a new company to get your card to travel on, right? So it's that kind of world, but the real point of this book is they're the Muppets. They're like the Muppets from like Sesame Street, and they're real entities in this world, okay? But I guess because there's no like public, TV, right? There's no PBS anymore, public broadcasting service. So they're all out of jobs, and they have become these like revolutionaries trying to fight this evil corporate government. It sounds like that should be really fun, but I don't know, it's a little disjointed. It gets a little heavy-handed sometimes with the dialogue. Feels like it gets a little stiff sometimes. It's a little quirky. It's interesting. But it didn't quite sell me. Also from Dark Horse, we have Frankenstein New World, issue number 1. I was really liking the Frankenstein miniseries that Mike Mignola was doing. I read this one with excitement. I was completely freaking lost. I think this takes place after like all the stuff that's been happening in BPRD over the last several years, and I haven't been caught up on that stuff. I got the trades now, but I was very lost. I liked it. The coloring was awesome. It's Dave Stewart, right? Oh, it's not Dave Stewart. Who is it? It's got that Dave Stewart flair, probably because it's got that Mignola flair. I guess Peter Bergting is doing the coloring. There's some really nice coloring on the page, some nice artwork. I was really lost, and kind of nothing happened. So, didn't really engage me, sadly. Then we got Mind Management Bootleg, issue number 2, the second issue of this new miniseries. There was a Mind Management series before. I never finished that, and I am enjoying these books, so I think that you don't necessarily need it. It is going to be a little bit confusing, but Mind Management is an organization that uses like people with like telepathic and another kind of meta extrasensory abilities to manipulate the public into believing things or not believing things, stuff like that, right? So I don't know how the previous Mind Management series ended. I loved it, but I just never got past a certain point. This, though, it feels like they're trying to develop a new mind management, or a new team to go up against a new mind management or something like that. So it's a whole new cast of characters we're being introduced to. They may be referencing stuff that happened in mind management, but it's mostly lost to me. The way Matt Kent is utilizing the format and the page is absolutely exceptional, so I liked it. Each issue is going to have a different artist. This one we have Matt Lesniewski, and it's a quirky, interesting style that I really, really like. This book had a great flow to it, and do not be misled or anything. You need to read every single bit, including the script in the back, which is something completely separate, and then you've got this extra strip in the back from Matt Kent, and then even the ads and everything. This is a really cool, fun, involved comic. I like that a lot. Then we got Once and Future, issue number 28. This is from Boom Studios. We are nearing the end of Once and Future, and now that I know that for sure, I can kind of forgive how quickly we've gotten to everything, but I almost can't, because this ending has felt rushed. I feel like there's literally a bit in this issue where they're like, oh, time's moving fast, we just lost a week. And I'm like, yeah, that's how it's been feeling. Like, is that the point Gillen's trying to make? Is that time and reality are shifting and changing? If so, maybe on a reread I can cut him some slack. But right now, for someone that was so engaged in this book and said it was one of the best books out there on shelves, these last few issues have been rather disappointing. Ever since we've kind of moved from that Robin Hood stuff, we are in the end game, but it's all so frantic and out of nowhere, and it just feels rushed, and it's just not resonating with me, and that's disappointing. Then we've got Sacrament, issue number 1. This is a new one from AWA. This is written by Peter Milligan with artwork by, I believe it's Marcelo Fruzen. I like this. This was interesting. Didn't quite have the best flow. It did feel a little bit stiff in certain moments in the story, but what it is it's kind of like an exorcism story in space. So it's about this priest. He's out there going from space colony to space colony to give people mass. And now they use transubstantiation, like instead of like, you know, the bread and the wine, now it's like he puts like a phone on their forehead and it activates something in their brain to give them the feeling of serenity and God and peace or something, right? Now, the priest is addicted to it, right? And then in certain worlds, it's outlawed to be there, so he's always on the run. And then they need his help because there's a demon-possessed person. At one point, he has done exorcisms, supposedly, and now there's this series of weird sacrilegious murders or something like that. So it was interesting. It had some solid artwork. It had some good moodiness to it. But all in all, it didn't quite excel to the point that I think it could, but it was interesting enough. I'm wanting to see how that develops. Then we have The Vineyard, issue number 1 from Brian Hawkins, Sammy Cavella. It was all right. This is from Aftershock Comics. It's about a family who owns and runs a vineyard, and they make wine, and their wine is incredibly successful. One of the best wines out there, and the reason why is because they worship Dionysus, and they have 4 human sacrifices a year to get Dionysus's favor, to be able to produce this wonderful wine and build this wine empire. Cool concept. Execution's kind of there. It's interesting. Didn't completely win me over, but it was all right. A lot of didn't win me over, but it was all right this week. And in this world where we got so many choices of entertainment, not just comics, but everything else, but even in comics, so many different comics, you really got to stand out, especially on issue number 1s. Then we got Mighty Morphin 22. This is a Kimberly-focused issue, all Pink Ranger type stuff, introducing some cool stuff and setting up the possibility of her leaving the team. So we are ramping up, building up to issue 100. I believe that's happening very, very soon, because this kind of felt like a little bit of, could have been a finale before the next big wave. Power Rangers has been waning on my interest lately, just overall in general, but this was still a very solidly crafted book. But I do think it's a little silly how they're adding in the metallic armor gimmick just to justify metallic figures. Like, you don't have to do that. The metallic figures are dope. You don't have to have a reason. Fox and Hare, issue number 2 from Vault Comics. It was all right. Artwork, simple but clean, efficient. Story, also efficient, never bogged down. Kind of kept a nice breeze, but I was kind of disconnected from the story and from the characters because it had been so long since the first issue that I kind of didn't even remember what was going on. And it didn't really do a good job of catching me back up. Not that they should, Maybe I should go back and reread issue number 1, but that was like 2 months ago. We read a lot of comics. Sometimes you got to remind us a little bit about what's actually going on. But anyway, for me, it was just all right. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. A lot of just all right books. But for me, the standouts, Aquaman, Andromeda, the Sword of Azrael books, New Champion of Shazam was good. Batman was solid. Flashpoint Beyond, Dark Crisis. I think DC won the week, y'all. I really, really do. Honestly. And The Closet. Really. That's how we're going to end that. Anyway, what are you reading? What are you digging? What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. What's your pick of the week? Let me know. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. As we mentioned at the beginning of the video, it really does help us out. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station, pop, pop, boom!